Hallelujah. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. At that time, Jesus came to Jericho and intended to pass through the town. Now, a man there named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector and also a wealthy man, was seeking to see who Jesus was. But he could not see him because of the crowd, for he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed to a sycamore tree in order to see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. When he reached the place, Jesus looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, come down quickly, for today I must stay at your house." And he came down quickly and received him with joy. When they all saw this, they began to grumble, saying, "He has gone to stay at the house of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Behold, half of my possessions, Lord, I shall give to the poor. And if I have extorted anything from anyone, I shall repay it 4 times over." And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a descendant of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save what was lost." The Gospel of the Lord. Before giving the homily, as you can notice, we have the altar of the dead that we did yesterday, the Hispanic community, and maybe most of you are not familiar with the symbolism of this altar from the dead. So I want to tell you in brief words what is the meaning and the symbolism of this altar from the dead. As you can notice, this altar has 3 stages or levels, and the first one means the church and earth, which is us. We are the church and earth, and that's why the first stage of the altar has food, because we are offering to God the labor of our jobs. The second stage has the pictures of our faithful departed. The second level is the church and purgatory, those who cannot pray for themselves but need of our prayers. That's why this second part of the altar only has pictures of the faithful departed, and they need of our prayers. And the third one is or represents the church and heaven. That's why it has the image or the statues of Jesus, Mary, and other saints. For the Indian people, like the Egyptians, they have the belief in the eternity. They know that death was not the last step of a person. But when the missionaries came to Mexico, they evangelized the people. They did not destroy their beliefs, they just Christianized the belief. And you will even see skulls. That means that Jesus defeated death on the cross. And the bread that you will see is the meaning of Jesus, the bread of life. They used all these elements before the missionaries came with a pagan symbolism, but again, the missionaries, they Christianize all these symbols. So this is not a pagan altar, but all the contrary. So you can go to look at it after Mass. Zacchaeus was a wealthy man, but the Gospel tells us that he became very wealthy by stealing his own people. That's why he was not well seen by his own people. And he have heard that Jesus was very demanding of the wealthy people and very merciful with sinners. So he had nothing to lose to come to see Jesus. And moved for curiosity and for the thirst of Jesus, he approached him. And something very interesting that the gospel tells us is that he was short in stature. And not only physically, but also he had forgotten about his dignity and the meaning of life. And this is what happens when we forget why we are in this world. We become short in our mission, in the things we are supposed to do. So he claimed to this sycamore tree to hear and see Jesus. He used a tree to see Jesus, but nowadays we use different things to get closer to Jesus. We use the Mass, the reading of the Bible, daily prayer, works of charity, and many other things that the church offers us to get closer to God. But something very important, we need to get far from distractions. This is one of the biggest temptations and obstacles to overcome nowadays, distractions and time. So it's important to think, what are the distractions that are a hinder for me to get closer to God, to hear the word of God, to feel the presence of God? And as I said, Zacchaeus had nothing to lose. So when Jesus spoke to him, Jesus brought peace to his life, joy to his life, and hope to his life. This is what God does for us. He brings us peace, joy, and hope. So God does his part every day in our lives. He walks by our side, but it is us who also need to do our part. So may the Lord gives us all the grace to be attentive to his presence, to his calling, to follow him. And as a church, to promote the encounter with God. What is what we do as a church to promote this encounter with God? And what is what I do personally to promote myself, my encounter with God? We can think about that this week.